Hello to all gamers. My name's Trey. I got 16th place at the June 10th Top Cut Digimon Ultimate Cup TCG. It's a lot of words to start out with. I've never done a decklist video before, so please bear with me. I was thinking about doing it, then someone messaged me on Discord and asked for the decklist, which I sent to them. But I figured, yeah, you know what, let's throw it together. Most people probably understand D-Reaper and how it works for the most part, but the game's been growing in popularity. I have come across a few people that have never even seen it before. So for this first part where I talk about the cards in the deck, I'm going to act as if you've never heard of D-Reaper before. If you have, you can skip a chunk of this, because the meat of the video is going to be me talking about my matchups and how I went against them, how I handled them. Right out of the gate, my matchups, I went 7-1-1. I had one time limit draw and one win against UlforceVeedramon. I had one win against Beelzemon. I had one win against an all-yellow security control. And then I had 4 matches against MagnaAngemon in a row. 3 wins, 1 loss. And we'll talk about those in more detail, but let's start with the deck list first. So all of your babies are going to be Mother D-Reaper. Mother D-Reaper, it is, as of right now, the only Digitama that can be raised from the breeding area into the main area. It is 15,000 DP, can't attack, it's not affected by your opponent's effect, and once per turn on your main phase, if you don't have another Mother D-Reaper in play, you can take one Searcher, which is going to be this card over here, from your hand or your field, slide it under her as a material, and then once per turn on your turn, when you would play a card with D-Reaper from your hand, D-Reaper trait from your hand, you can reduce its play cost by 1 for each of the Digivolution cards under Mother D-Reaper. It's the core bit of your deck. The only way for your opponent to out Mother D-Reaper is to either swing on Unsuspended or use Raid, and then have 15,000 or more DP. So, very key thing. You raise it up, you do all the stuff we're going to talk about. The next time you can, you should hatch another one, just in case they somehow out it, but never raise the second one unless your other one dies, and if your first one dies, you're probably losing anyway. Searcher! You can run more than 3 of this card in your deck. More than 4, I mean. Sorry, I had Yu-Gi-Oh! On the brain. You can run more of 4 of these in your deck. I run 20. Some people will tell you this is too many. Some people will tell you that this is not enough. You need to see this. You need to see it often. I think 20 is the right amount with how much searchability this deck has in terms of finding your searchers. Sometimes you will go in opening hand and see no searchers and then mulligan into a hand with no searchers. It will not happen often. It has happened to me. My god, it sucks. But for the most part, I think 20 is a healthy amount. It's got a play cost of 3, but if you don't have another searcher in play, you can play it for 1. On play, draw 1. It's inheritable as on your turn. All of your Digimon with D-Reaper and their traits gets plus 1,000 DP. You can see where this works with Mother D-Reaper. You play it for 1. It's your main draw power since none of your Digimon Digivolve. But, you know, if you don't want to spend the 1 memory to get the draw, you don't feel like you need it, you can take it right from your hand and go underneath Mother D-Reaper. We'll talk more about that later. Pendulum Feet, rerun it at 4. Has a play cost of 3. On play, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. Add 1 card with a D-Reaper trait and 1 Searcher among them to your hand. Place the remaining ones on the bottom of your deck. So, Searcher, 1 other card. You can take 2 Searchers if you want. A Searcher also has D-Reaper in its traits. Great card. It's the most important search in your deck. This is how you grab your pieces if you don't already have them or don't draw them with Searcher. It's how you make sure you grab more Searchers because you will need a lot of them. It's also it's very good early game body, it and Bubbles. If you go second, you really want to go first any chance you get with Mother D-Reaper, but if you have to go second, dropping one of these or dropping a Searcher in one of these, depending on how your memory panned out, it's usually your best, like, going first turn if you didn't go first, if you get what I'm saying. Bubbles, 3 cost. On play and when hit from security, you can take a Searcher from your hand or field and slide it underneath your Mother D-Reaper. This obviously ignores the once per turn for the Searcher going underneath. This is how you get an extra Searcher per turn underneath your Mother D-Reaper. It helps speed things up. You want a lot of Searchers underneath her so you can get reduced play cost. And, you know, we're going to see some key pieces down here at the end that require a specific amount of Searchers underneath. This is your fantastic second turn play. If you go first, you drop Searcher for 1, your opponent's at 1 memory. They set you to, like, 1 or 2. It's very easy to, like, say you're at 1 memory, slide the Searcher underneath your Mother D-Reaper, reduce the play cost of a Bubbles by 1 to drop it for 2, Searcher from hand underneath. If they set you to 2, you can play the Searcher for 1 to get the draw, and then drop your Bubbles for 2 and slide that Searcher on the field underneath. Bubbles, very good. A key component of this deck is choking your opponent's memory. You really want to set them to 1 as often as possible. And in Ultimate Cup, I found that that's been very doable. The only deck I went against that was running a Memory Tamer at all was the UlforceVeedramon. And it worked out well. Jerry is a 5 play cost. On your main phase, you may suspend Jerry to reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and place 1 Searcher among them underneath your Mother D-Reaper as its bottom Digivolution card. Bottom deck the rest of your cards in any order that you reveal. Jerry, very important card, very good, helps you get more gas, more Searchers underneath your Mother D-Reaper. However, you want to be careful. You don't want to throw down a Jerry too early. It does cost 5, and like I said, it's much more important that you choke your opponent out with memory, because straight up, Jerry is... If your opponent knows what's going on, your Jerry's going to get you 1 Searcher. And then the next turn, your opponent is going to swing and kill Jerry. So, you want to make sure you don't give your opponent a ton of memory in order to play Jerry, because you're probably only getting the 1 Searcher out of it. If you can, I would make sure you have another body on field with the Jerry, so that when your opponent swings, they kill the Jerry. If they can't unsuspend, you know, unless they have a Mega, they're likely swinging with like a level 4 or 5 with 6,000 or 7,000 DP. A Bubbles or a Pendulum Feet could easily go in to get the revenge kill for whatever took out Jerry. Very important card, though. Very good for getting you the key pieces you need, especially late game when you can just drop it for free or play it with Optimizer. We'll talk about him later. Creep Hands, 5 play cost. It's a 6k blocker. That's it. Very good. I think in Ultimate Cup, having this block on hand to stop a swing, basically just buying you a turn usually, is incredible. This can win you games just having a Creep Hands or 2 out at the right time. Horn Striker and Palate's Head, we're going to talk about them at the same time. Horn Striker is a 7 cost, it has Rush. That is it. Palate's Head is a 6 cost, and if you have a Mother D-Reaper in play, you may suspend Palate's Head to delete one of your opponent's Digimon with DP less than or equal to this. I think Palate's Head sucks. It's hard to see with how I have the screen cropped. It has a base DP of 3,000. It is a 6 play cost with a DP of 3,000. That sucks, alright? If you have 4 materials under your Mother D-Reaper, you're still paying 2 to play this, and it can only pop a Digimon with 7,000 DP or less. The reason I run this at 1 is the same reason I run Horn Striker at 1, which is for late game, getting that 1 extra swing or pop for game. Because a lot of times, if your opponent knows what they're doing, they're going to look at your field, they're going to see you've got Reaper active, which we'll talk about in a bit, they're going to count how many swings you have on board, and they're going to protect themselves by the exact right amount. Whether it's... I literally won a game against MagnaAngemon because he counted how many card swings I had, he counted how many Searchers I had in trash to figure out how many Reaper swings I would have, he played a Guardramon for 5 to hard drop it, and he was like, that's it. Even if he has Horn Striker, I have the right amount. But, unfortunately for him, I knew Horn Striker was on top of my deck. I was able to swing with Optimizer, play a Horn Striker, which is another swing, and then I was able to reduce play cost to drop the Palate's Head, suspend it to delete his Guardramon, basically being the equivalent of an extra swing because I popped his blocker. A lot of that may have made no sense to you, but we'll go into more details of the plays. It's complicated. The point is, this can surprise pop a blocker. This is a surprise swing. You run one of them because they're very expensive. You don't want to see them often, but they can give you that clutch bit. Gatekeeper. Broken. Honest to God, if they didn't add cards that could swing on unsuspended, I think this card would be banned. This card probably should have been banned in its heyday. It's cutting off a little bit. It's a play cost of 11. It's a lot. But on play, if you have a Mother D-Reaper in play, recovery +1, plus on your opponent's turn while you have a Mother D Reaper with 6 or more Digivolution cards in play. All of your opponent's Digimon get security attack -1. That is a permanent effect as long as your Mother D Reaper is on play with 6 materials and Gatekeepers on the field. If they play a new Digimon, it automatically has the security attack -1. These effects stack. You get 2 Gatekeepers out, it is 2 security effects. It is 2 security attacks -1. It's worth playing if you've got the 6 materials under. Yeah, it costs 5 to play at that point. It's a recovery and shutting down your opponent's attacks unless they can out Gatekeeper or get security attack plus. And even then, it's only swinging for 1 check unless they gain even more. And this is the main reason I ran D Reaper in Ultimate Cup, is a lot of decks, and we'll talk about some of the key matchups later, they don't swing for security attack plus unless it's super late game. They mostly swing a bunch of times or unsuspend a lot. So like for Ulforce, a single Gatekeeper was shutting them down entirely. For Beelzemon, Gatekeeper was shutting them down. And again, more details later. But the biggest thing of Gatekeeper, on top of all that, if they hit Gatekeeper in security, Gatekeeper plays itself without battling. That's the recovery. If you've got the 6 materials, the security attack minuses are all live. People will lose entire games because they hit your Gatekeeper in security. This card is cracked. Now, that being said, I would say Gatekeeper is probably tied for most important card in the deck. Maybe, I'd say it was a 3-way tie, because this and the next 2 cards, I genuinely think all of them played key roles in winning. Because this next card, I actually got more use out of in Ultimate Cup than I did from Gatekeeper, which is Optimizer. Now, this is a card most people don't play in their D Reaper decks. I don't really understand why this card is cracked, in my opinion. It's a play cost of 10, and on play and when attacking, if one of your Mother D Reapers has 5 or more Digivolution cards, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You get to play one of them, which for us is most of our cards, if not all of them, except for the Antibody, have D Reaper. You play a D Reaper with a play cost of 10 or less among them without paying the cost, and then you place the other 2 cards at the top of your deck in any order. You are playing a body for free and you are stacking your deck. This card plays every card in our deck except Gatekeeper, Antibody, and the Reapers. Every other one of these cards, if you hit them, it plays them. If you hit a Creep Hands and want a blocker, you've got a blocker. You can play the Jerry and get a free Searcher added via suspending her immediately. You play Bubbles for free and get a Searcher added immediately. Pendulum Feet for the search. Palate's Head to pop a body. You can draw you can hit 2 Gatekeepers, you can hit Gatekeeper and Reaper and a Searcher, you can put whichever one of these cards you want on top, then play the Searcher, and then draw the card you want. If you have a Gatekeeper in hand, and you see Gatekeeper, you, with your Optimizer play, by like swinging with Optimizer, you can keep Gatekeeper on top, play the Gatekeeper from your hand, and congratulations, you now know your top security card is a Gatekeeper, which will get played as soon as they swing on your security. And the most cracked part of all, Optimizer is a play cost of 10. Optimizer can play itself. If you hit an Optimizer with your Optimizer plays an Optimizer, which then optimizes and gets to play another body. I've done an Optimizer chain of 3 Optimizers before, and it was so many bodies on the board with one effect that there was nothing my opponent could do. This floods the field so much that your opponent has no choice but to go full defensive. And as soon as they do that, within a turn or 2, you're going with Reaper, you've still got a ton of swings on the board. You're just overwhelming them. I won matches by just overwhelming my opponents more than I won by having Gatekeeper out. But again, we'll talk more about the specifics later. Then, we've got Reaper. It's got a play cost of 20. You're never playing it for a cost of 20. It has 15,000 DP. When you would play this Digimon, you may trash 7 or more Digivolution cards from the bottom of one of your Mother D Reapers to set this Digimon's play cost to 0. And then, when attacking, you may place 2 Searchers from your trash under this Digimon in any order as its bottom Digivolution card to unsuspend this Digimon. This is your game closer. If you haven't gotten game otherwise, basically, imagine you've got Mother D Reaper and you've got 7 Searchers underneath. You trash the 7 Searchers, you send Reaper out. You get 1 swing, you unsuspend with 2 of those Searchers. You get a second swing, you unsuspend with 2 of those Searchers. You get a third swing, you unsuspend with 2 of those Searchers. You get a 4th swing guaranteed. If there are any other Searchers in trash, you can keep going. I say with 1 of those Searchers. It takes 2 Searchers, which is why you get 3 unsuspends out of 1 Mother D Reaper. But you can keep unsuspending if you had other Searchers in the trash. This will be relevant to a certain deck we will talk about in a bit. And basically, it's a guaranteed 4 swings. It starts at 15k. The unsuspend with the Searchers comes when attacking. So, really, it'll be for 17 plus, starting with the first attack. It can swing over anything. You could just use it to kill all the bodies if you wanted. Most of the time, I just used it and the fact that I was flooding bodies with Optimizer to just overwhelm my opponents. Gatekeeper slows them down, but really these 2 are just closing out the game. Very little people are going to have enough defense to stop both of them. And the trashing the materials to play the Reaper for 0, that is not a reducing play cost via Mother D Reaper's effect. So you can, say, reduce its play cost to play a Horn Striker for an extra swing or something. Or just anything, really, to get a body on the field as long as it's still your turn, and then trash it to do the Reaper, since all those materials are going to be gone once you go Reaper. So you should not be going for Reaper unless you're going for game. But you could also use it to out a Quartzmon if you need to. That would work. We'll talk more about that in a bit. The biggest risk with Reaper is if you hit something in security that is going to kill you. That sucks. You're kind of out a lot. That's why you want to make sure you've got bodies stacked out with Optimizer. Since, you know, once the materials are gone from Mother D Reaper, your Gatekeeper's not live anymore. Your Gatekeeper's just a body at that point. Now, admittedly, it's still a 10k body you can swing with. Your blocker can still attack. Searcher and Mother D Reaper are the only ones here that can't attack. So, like, once you go for Reaper, you want to make sure you have a lot of bodies out, too, to make sure you can close the game that turn. The final card we're going to talk about is Antibody. It does a lot of stuff. It doesn't do a lot in this deck. The only thing it does is if they hit it in security, you gain a memory and add it to hand. It's a 0 cost. You slide it underneath one of your Digimon, slide it underneath your Mother D Reaper. You can only do it 1. You can't put both under 1. We run 2 because we want to see it, and in case something happens to one of our first Mother D Reapers. But you basically put it under, it's a free material under your Mother D Reaper. It counts for Gatekeeper, it counts for Optimizer. You can trash it to play the Reaper early. You can't add it under the Reaper to unsuspend, but you know what? The difference between 6 Searchers in trash and 7 is irrelevant to Reaper. Like, if you've got more Searchers in trash, you'll want to, like, go for the 7 if you can. But if you really need to Reaper for game, 6 and 1x Antibody is going to make 0 difference in the long run. You're still getting 4 swings off of Reaper. And obviously it counts as a material for you to be able to reduce their cost by 1, because all of these only care how many materials you have. The only thing that matters for how many Searchers is for gaining the DP on your turn. So that is the quick rundown of the deck list. I think I went almost 20 minutes. I went a bit more detail than I expected. We're going to talk about some matchups here. Some of these matchups, I'll talk about how I handled them. Some of these matchups I didn't go against at all, so I'm going to talk about how I think I would handle them. And some of these are matchups that I've practiced against outside of Ultimate Cup format, but didn't come across to actually have results to tell you. So the first thing we're going to talk about is any WAAAAY deck. You lose. I'm sorry to say it. I know that's not what you want to hear when you've just sat through a 19-minute explanation of a deck list, but it is important that you know if you play against any WAAAAY deck, you lose. They can swing on unsuspended. They have raid. They can easily get over 15k DP. They will just kill your Mother D Reaper. That is it. I took this D Reaper to a regionals last year. I got 90th out of, I think, 200-something people. It was an in-person regional. I did manage to beat a WAAAAY deck. I would not rely on doing that again. I had a game where my opponent had 3 BlackWarGreymons on the field, and every turn, they just swung and killed my Mother D Reapers. that is it. That's all they did, because it made sure I could not play the game while they slowly trashed my security. I got lucky. I went into Ultimate Cup saying, if I fight MagnaAngemon or WAAAAY, I lose, but maybe I can take out the other decks. I think this is a good counter to the rest of the meta. Maybe I'll get top 128. I got lucky. I didn't play against WAAAAY. I shockingly was able to play around MagnaAngemon. We'll go into a lot of detail on that here near the end. And I got 16th. I lucked out. I saw 2 or 3 BlackWarXs that topped the same tournament as me. Thank God I didn't play against them. That's all I gotta say. You're cooked if you play against WAAAAY. UlforceVeedramon. This Ulforce 0, I think. Maybe it's this one. I think it's X Antibody. I don't know why I said 0. X Antibody can gain security attack plus if they have like 8 or more cards in their hand. But other than that, like, you just need to survive long enough to get a Gatekeeper out. Once you have a Gatekeeper out, their Ulforce X is the only thing that can get a check against you. And if you get a second Gatekeeper out, they're cooked. They literally can't do anything. Most Ulforce decks in Ultimate Cup do run a Great Maelstrom, which allows they play it for 6, and it bottom decks one of your Digimon with no Digivolution materials. They will use it to bottom deck your Gatekeeper, so keep that in mind. Having one Gatekeeper on the field is not an auto win, because if they draw the Great Maelstrom, they do gain enough memory from like all their tamers and effects or whatever. They will be able to play it even if it ends their turn, bottom decking that Gatekeeper. Now, that doesn't mean it is impossible for you to ever get to that Gatekeeper. We will talk about card counting in a bit, which is something that I do with my D-Reaper deck. So it is possible to get that Gatekeeper back, but it's unlikely. You shouldn't rely on it. If they're playing Great Maelstrom, the bottom deck your Gatekeeper, meaning you probably either hit it in security or you put it into play because it's active. You're in late game. They're going to be going for game soon. I beat one UlforceVeedramon player literally just because, like, I had the Gatekeepers out. He used his Great Maelstrom. I was able to get another Gatekeeper out. I had too many bodies on the board. He could not play aggressive. He had to play defensive early, and that, you know, bought me the time to get Gatekeeper out. He didn't have an out. Most of Ulforce is unsuspending. And even if they get the perfect, like, oh, I get the security attack +1, I'm playing Tamers to unsuspend. With a Gatekeeper out, they're still only getting 1 check. You get a couple you get like a creep hands or 2 out. They're not taking all of your security out. You really just be aggressive early, get bodies out with Optimizer and whatnot, and build up to Gatekeeper fast. It shuts them down. Obviously, I won against, I think it was 2-1 against one Ulforce, and then I went to a 1-1 time limit draw against my round 1 opponent. This is where I gotta talk about doing tournaments on Discord for a minute. Discord was not enjoying the Ultimate Cup tournament. I was having a lot of technical issues on Discord, and it did, like, basically what would happen is I would turn on my webcam and Discord would crash. And nobody could find a solution to this besides restarting my PC. And so this happened at the start of 3 rounds. One of them ended up not mattering. One of them we'll talk about later. And in round 1 when it happened, it basically killed enough time that we went to time limit draw. Not enough time that I ended up getting a game loss or anything. But, you know, not to discredit my opponent or anything, they were very good. I for sure would have won 2-1 if we did not go to time limit draw because of me having Discord issues. Because he had already used his Great Maelstrom. I had 2 Gatekeepers on play and like 2 other bodies that could swing. And I had Reaper in hand. And he had, like, I think at most 2 blocks. And I still had 3 or 4 security. He had most of his Tamers in play. He had 3 memory. Even if he's had a second Great Maelstrom, there was no way for him to do it without passing his turn. But that's how it goes. We don't regret the time limit draw. We just, you know, we acknowledge, hey, if you're worried that I went to a time limit draw for Ulforce, is that going to happen to you? Not unless you have Discord issues, probably. However, in terms of time limit draw, I played against an all-yellow security control deck. I beat it 2-0. All-yellow security control deck honestly doesn't seem that good to me. I kind of just beat it by having a lot of bodies. Once Optimizer went live on turn 3 or 4, there was not a single turn where I didn't have at least 4 checks on the board. Never go into Reaper against security control, because you will probably hit something in security that gets rid of your Reaper. But other than that, you're mostly just flooding bodies with Optimizer, and you're getting so many checks in. All they can do is hard drop things to recover, and out maybe a body per turn, and you're just going to outpace them. Now, that being said, here's where we have to acknowledge the truth about security control in Ultimate Cup. If you let them take a single game against you, you will go to time limit draw. Because you can know exactly what you're doing, and you could play all of your Reaper moves in 30 seconds or less. Your turns could take 30 seconds or less. Set them to like 3 memory, maybe less. Every turn they will spend 2 to 3 minutes looking at their cards, and then just hard drop some level 5 to recover. And that is just how it goes. You will go to time limit draw if you have to play 3 games against security control. The one that I played against, I was one of their only 2 losses, and then they had 3 wins and 3 time limit draws. So, make sure you win. Just flood bodies on this one. They don't have the purple tamers that end your turn every time you attack, so you can just keep swinging. Red Hybrid. I did not face Red Hybrid at Ultimate Cup. I was very surprised by this. I did do some practice against Red Hybrid. I have been told the D-Reaper against Red Hybrid matchup is very bad. However, I might say my win rate was 50-50 in the practice games I did. And the person I was playing against was running the Bokomon and Nemon stuff, making their Red Hybrid deck more consistent as far as I could tell, and easier to go for like the OTKs and whatnot. Those are cards you can't run in Ultimate Cup in Red Hybrid. So, I mean, it's hard for me to say. You just gotta play fast. You have to build up to Gatekeeper quick, because they're going to be swinging with a lot of bodies. Palate's Head would help you here in terms of popping Flamemon before they can swing on you, but getting Palate's Head out early is pretty difficult. I don't know. It's hard for me to comment too much on this. I'd say this will be a tough matchup. I do think you definitely stand a chance if you play right, but I don't have a lot of like comparison to go off, unfortunately. I didn't think to bring up the image for it, but I did just recall Blue Flare is something you could expect to see in Ultimate Cup, and you are at a bit of a disadvantage since you will always have 2 bodies on the field for Blue Flare to take advantage of. I've seen people say that Blue Flare is an absolute free win against D-Reaper. Like Blue Flare is they will guaranteed beat D-Reaper. And that there's no way you can slow them down because it will take you 5 to 6 turns to get Gatekeeper out. I'm gonna be honest, if you go in against someone who knows how to play D-Reaper with that mentality, you're gonna lose. Because I've played against Blue Flare a lot, because my cousin loves Blue Flare and runs it. I win more often than I don't. I don't really have a lot of tips. It's just getting Gatekeeper out is not that hard. It shouldn't be taking you 5 to 6 turns. And if it is, you should at least be going gas with the Optimizer. So it's like, yeah, you're not, like, Blue Flare, it's gonna be like a tough battle either way. I'd say on par with Red Hybrid, but it's not a guaranteed loss, and don't let anyone tell you that. You just gotta play smart. Bloomlord. I've never played against this. I'm very surprised I didn't play against it in Ultimate Cup. As far as I know, nothing in their deck gains security attack +1 except for the Bloomlord itself. So really a single Gatekeeper's gonna go a long way. They can't swing on your Gatekeeper to get rid of it. Like, they have Piercing, but your Gatekeeper would have to be suspended. And, you know, I'm all for swing with your Gatekeeper if you're going for turn that game, and your creep hands. Like, swing with what you can if you're going for game. But otherwise, you shouldn't be swinging with Gatekeeper. So, like, you shouldn't be worried about Bloomlord, like, piercing through it, killing your Gatekeeper. The biggest threat against the Bloomlord deck is Quartzmon, which I'm amazed has not been limited to 1 for Ultimate Cup. And Quartzmon, honestly, if you go up against a Quartzmon, just focus, like if the Quartzmon comes out, hopefully you already have enough Searchers out, like underneath your Mother D Reaper. Just go to Reaper, swing at Quartzmon, put 2 Searchers under the Reaper, you can't unsuspend because of the Quartzmon effect, but you'll then be swinging for 17k and killing the Quartzmon. And you'll have, like, 15k on your opponent's turn, so they're probably not swinging over your Reaper. That'll probably just, like, you'll be fine, honestly. Again, I don't have any, like, examples to give you. I haven't done it. But to me, like, it seems like if you got Reaper in hand and you've got the 7 materials, it seems like you can just out the Quartzmon and then next turn go for your Reaper multiple swings for game. That's just how I see it. But again, I've never played against Bloomlord before. We're going to talk about Beels before we talk about Chaos. Beelzemon. I only played against one. I've only played against one Beels X deck ever. It seems like a free win for D-Reaper. As long as you just play aggressive early, if they swing with, like, one of their rookies and live, just swing on them to kill them. Because, like, it takes them a little bit of time to build up, especially with EX2 Impmon down to 1. It takes them time to build up to their, like, oh, trash all of your security, blah, blah, blah. By the time they're doing that, you'll probably have Gatekeeper out. And, like, unless they go Beelzemon burst mode as well as, like, unless they go X Antibody into Beelzemon blast mode, you kind of, you're fine. Like, they would have to trash all your security, and then you would have none left, and then even with a Gatekeeper out, they would have to go to blast mode to swing for game. And if you just get a second Gatekeeper out, they literally can't touch you. They have no way to gain multiple security checks. There might be a Beelzemon card that gains multiple for how many you have. I don't think I saw anyone run it. They can't out your bodies, is my point. I didn't even need Gatekeeper. Rivals Barrage does nothing to you. Deathslinger does nothing to you. Your Digimon don't have levels, so they cannot out any of your bodies. The Impmon Inheritable can't out you. Beelzemon's effect cannot out you. Your bodies stay on the board. You get Optimizer out, you're just flooding bodies they can't get rid of. You're going to just take them out and win. It was a little sad seeing Beelzemon just be unable to do anything. This is like a shocking... This was a way easier matchup for D-Reaper than I was expecting. Chaos Dramon, Machine Dramon deck. I played against 4 of these. I thought this would be an auto-lose for me. I thought the moment I saw every single Machine Dramon deck I had to play against, I thought it was Jover. I thought this was it. I managed to beat 3 of them. I did lose 0-2 to 1. He was very good Machine Dramon player, which is something we'll touch on in a bit. One of my games, again, I had my Discord issues, and my opponent made sure to have a judge come in and issue me a game loss for having the time being taken up at the start. And then I just won the next 2 games to take the round. It really is probably the most uncomfortable hour of Digimon I've ever had in my life. He was very unhappy about getting the free game win and then, like, losing it 2 in a row. But, you gotta play well. We gotta talk about this for a bit. Because people are running all black Machine Dramon Ultimate Cup. Because you need Analog Man, you need your Machine Dramons, or their black cards. Either my opponents didn't have the builds to do it, or most of them are red cards. I don't really know. I just finished building a Machine Dramon deck myself, so it would require me doing more research. They weren't able to get over 15k. Most of them couldn't get to 15k DP. Meaning their attack unsuspended Digimon, yeah, it made, like, Gatekeeper useless for anything other than a heal. It made it easy for them to out my Optimizers. They couldn't out my Mother D-Reaper. I don't know if it was, like, inexperience, so they didn't build correctly to get to 15 plus, or what. Because I will say, the guy who beat me, he was the only one of the 4 Machine Dramon players who did the 2 things that I expected every Machine Dramon player to do, which is get Chaos Dramon X to 15k and then crash into Mother D-Reaper and just sacrifice 2 materials to save yourself, because I can't do that. My Mother D-Reaper's dead. Congratulations, I'm cooked. And he's also the only one who, when I looked like I had a lot of bodies on board and I swung with something that had more DP than his Chaos X, he redirected to Chaos X and then chose to let it die so that he could use BT11 Machinedramon to bottom deck an Analog Man, play EX1 Machinedramon, gain 5 memory, and end my turn immediately. That's smart. That's how you should be playing Machinedramon. He knew what to do. He had the counters for me. He knew my deck's weakness. He obliterated me. 2-0. It was by far the fastest round I participated in. So I don't want to talk down on anyone, but, like, don't get me wrong, I had to play really well. This is, like, the proudest I've ever been playing Digimon, because I had to play really well to get around Machinedramon, but I really feel like at least 2, if not all 3 of the people I played against, kind of just, they saw that Machinedramon was good, so they copied a deck list, and they played it. And they knew the key, they knew the bullet points of what you're supposed to do with Machinedramon, but at least 2 of them really didn't know how to adapt to a different situation, because, you know, I'm doing a lot of swings early. Here's the thing, here's your tips for facing Machinedramon with D-Reaper. It's gonna be scary, it's gonna be hard. If they know how to play their deck well, you're screwed, but you can play around it. Obviously they need their piece that lets them swing on unsuspended. There wasn't a single game where that wasn't, like, the first material they had. And so, if they can get to 15k and they're smart enough to crash on Mother D-Reaper, you're cooked. Otherwise, they're going to go for your Gatekeeper, so don't use Gatekeeper unless you're just trying to gain security. If you can do that optimizer play I mentioned before, where Gatekeeper's on top, and you play a Gatekeeper to put a Gatekeeper in security, that's not bad. But a lot of what they do is trash security. So, like, like, if they're just trashing your security, you're not getting your effects off. But at the same time, it does mean that, like, the Gatekeeper is not as important anyway as it would have been. Since they're trashing your security instead of swinging, Gatekeeper is a 10k body in this. Don't be afraid to swing with your Gatekeeper, honestly, because they're going to swing on it to kill it anyway. What you want to do against Machinedramon is you want to be aggressive early. Your bubbles, your pendulum feet, if they're at 4 or 5k, as long as your opponent doesn't already have a blocker out that will kill them instantly, you want to be swinging with them. Will they probably die in security? Yes. But bubbles and pendulum feet, they have done their job on play. You let them take out a security on their way out. If they live, holy crap, they're going off. They're going to do much more than you ever expected. Machinedramon players I was going against, they made sure to get that Metal MagnaAngemon in to pop a 5 play cost or lower. They got in, I think it's a Megidramon, I could be wrong, that lets you pop a 3 play cost or lower. So they would pop Searchers, they would pop my Creep Hands, they would pop my Bubbles, they would swing on one of my Digimon unsuspended, and they would pop half the bodies around them. But there's the key. By the time they've gotten to that point, I've already gotten about 2 checks off usually, leaving them with 3. They are so focused on popping bodies. All right, this is key. I need you to focus here. If I had my webcam on, I need you to look me in my eyes. They are so worried about you getting a Searcher underneath your Mother D-Reaper that if you end turn with a Searcher on field, they will usually choose to pop that Searcher over popping a Pendulum Feet or a Bubbles. Machinedramon players, look at me. Look me in my imaginary eyes, Machinedramon players. Do not do that. Do not pop the Searchers. I know you think in your head, I popped the Searcher. That's one less Searcher for him to slide under Mother D-Reaper, and then I can just redirect the Bubbles attack into my Chaosdramon or whatever. Even if my Searcher is the only Digimon I have in field, do not kill it. Because every single one of the Machinedramon players I beat fell for the same thing, which is I would take a Searcher from hand, slide it underneath my Mother D-Reaper, and then I'd play 1 for 1 and leave it on the field. And every turn, just because they could. It is a you may effect to pop a play cost of 3, I believe. So if I'm wrong, oopsies. But they would, because they could, they'd always pop the Searcher I have sitting on the field. And do you know why that is a mistake? Because once I have 7, because I'm building up Searchers anyway by playing Bubbles and putting Searchers from my hand under there, I go to Reaper. Reaper unsuspends with Searchers from trash. So every time those Machinedramon players trashed one of my, or deleted one of my Searchers from field, that was 1/2 of another unsuspend I could get off of Reaper. I was doing like 6 to 7 checks with Reaper in a single turn. That mixed with the bodies I was throwing out with Optimizer, mixed with me reducing play costs to throw out a Horn Striker for another swing before going to Reaper, or throwing down the Palate's Head to pop a Guardramon before going to Reaper, they did not have enough redirects to be able to stop me. And again, I don't know if they didn't have the card, I don't know if they just didn't think about it. When I bust out that Reaper, that is when, as a MachineDramon player, you should let your Chaos X die, and you should go to EX1 MachineDramon to end my turn by gaining memory. If you can, you need to do that. I will be swinging for everything with Reaper, and just tearing everything apart. It is such a simple trick, yet 3 of the 4 players fell for it. Even the ones where, and don't get me wrong, all of these MachineDramon games were tough. MachineDramon's a great deck. It was very scary for me. But putting on that pressure early, baiting them into killing the Searchers so that I had more unsuspends with Reaper, that got me the game 3 out of 4 times. But again, MachineDramon's tough. If a MachineDramon player has watched this video, they have gotten I think 40 minutes deep now we are, they're probably going to be able to beat you as Mother D Reaper. There are very specific plays you need to make with MachineDramon. If I may give a little bit of MachineDramon advice, learn how to adapt. You cannot just say, this is, well, now that Chaos X is on the field, I'm unbeatable. You're probably unbeatable, but you can be tricked, and you do not want to fall for tricks. Field awareness is very important in this game, and that is why some of the most advice I can give to you for this D-Reaper deck is play based on what's happening. If you think it's the time to send out a Jerry, go for it. If you think a swing with a Creep Hands or a Gatekeeper is more important than whatever effect they give you, if you need a swing, if your opponent has 1 Digimon on the field, it has 11k DP, you have a Gatekeeper on field already that can swing with the Gatekeeper. Kill their 1 Digimon. They would need a Digimon with Rush and more than 10k DP to out your Gatekeeper. And there are decks that can do that. Mostly Greymon, which is beating you anyway. Just pay attention. Focus on your field. I said I'd talk about card counting. I'll do that real quick. The most I can just say for D-Reaper is board presence is very important. Know what your opponent's deck does, know what it can do, and play around that and be prepared for that. To talk about card counting real quick, most people can't do this. I can only barely do it, but if you can, it's going to help you a lot here. Between Jerry milling 5, Optimizer searching the top 3, Gatekeeper recovering all of the draws you get from Searcher and from drawing from hand, the searches from Pendulum Feet, you're going to go through, you can cycle your deck. You can cycle your whole deck. If I've done, listen, you start the game with only 40 cards in deck. A Jerry searches 5 and then bottom decks them. Anytime you have to here's another bit of advice. Anytime you have to bottom deck a card, bottom deck your non-searchers on top. So like you swing your Jerry, you have to bottom deck 4 of those cards. Anything that's not a searcher you put on top, because you're more likely to cycle through and see them and then hit them with Optimizer, because that will be late game by the time you get to them. That's the general advice you should follow. If you're able to count your cards that you're being drawn in your head, you're like, oh, I'm milling Jerry, that's 5 more, I bottomed deck this, I now know this card is X amount of cards away in my deck, so after X amount of searches, draws, Jerrys, I know when I'm getting this card. I bottom deck Hornstriker. I know where Hornstriker is. Oh, now I know Hornstriker's in my top 3. I drop down the Optimizer to play a Hornstriker for free, get Rush. That's a real thing you can do. I can do it to an extent. Don't worry too much about doing that. If you got the Rain Man abilities, you're good to go. You do it, and you're going to have a big advantage. It's going to help you a lot. But for the most part, you can get away with just putting non-searchers on top of your bottom-decked stuff so that you can see them later with Optimizer. Again, I've seen people say that D-Reaper auto loses to Blue Flare because what are the odds they'll get 2 Gatekeepers out or even see them in their deck? You can cycle your whole deck with this deck. It's really not hard. Do not underestimate that. And that's really it. I've just gone about 45 minutes about a deck that auto loses to WAAAAY and probably will lose to Machine Dramon most of the time. Would I recommend running this at Ultimate Cup now that you've sat here for 45 minutes? No. No, I would not. I ran this for element of surprise. I thought a lot of decks wouldn't be prepared for it. Because they just don't have the security attack plus. I thought a lot of decks would be caught off guard by it. A lot of removal is level-based. Ulforce's removal is level-based. I didn't even talk about that. There's just a lot to go into. I think the element of surprise worked. I think it worked really well. I think it could work again, but I think the moment this starts working a little too much is the moment it no longer works. If you get a D-Reaper mirror match, welcome to hell. Enjoy your time limit draw. The most I could recommend, because, you know, once you get Gatekeeper out, neither one of you can attack if you both have Gatekeeper out, the most you can do at that point is pull 8's head, suspend, pop the Gatekeeper, and hope they don't have another, but... You know, the more popular... The more D-Reaper does well in Ultimate Cup, the more people will be prepared for it, the more they'll know how to play around it, and the more D-Reapers you'll see, and that's an auto time limit draw. So, hey, if you want to hear about D-Reaper doing well for 50 minutes, I'm glad you showed up. I hope you had a blast. I'm not good at making decklist videos. I do just start rambling, but I hope you've enjoyed this absolutely in-depth guide on this deck I put together a year and a half ago, and then a week before Ultimate Cup decided to go into it because I thought my Creepymon deck that I was building for Ultimate Cup was stinky poo-poo butt. And, hey, if you enjoyed this video, if you stuck around, hey, leave a like, subscribe. I'm glad you stuck around for so long. I hope you're having a lovely day. I hope you're having a good one. If you played against me in Ultimate Cup, I hope you had a fun time. I hope your Ultimate Cup was very good. I had a terrible experience because of Discord. Have a good one, everyone. Someone is sneezing in the other room.